Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Brian. Behind me is my 1973 Moto Guzzi Eldorado that we've been working on in the last few videos. Today we're going to work on the rear of the bike. We're going to work on the rear tire, rear wheel bearings, the rear drive box, get the rear fender back on, get all that back part of the bike put back together so we can at least roll it around. If you haven't subscribed, please do. There'll be more of this coming. Enjoy. So this could potentially be one of those rare moments where I've recorded a bunch of stuff with no audio, and usually I realize it when I'm done and I'm editing the video. In this instance, I caught it pretty much when I was going to the next step. I removed the rear wheel to go ahead and install the tire. That way I can get the fender back on, get this stuff cleaned up, kind of be done with this. That's the rear drive. It's splined in there with a little hub on the wheel. I'll show you in a second. There's the brake drum that comes out of there. I don't like doing a lot of stuff with voiceovers because I can never get the audio right, or the voiceover mic sounds like I'm standing across the room. So I'm going to get you caught up, and then we'll go work on getting this tire off, get the new tire mounted. I also had a long discussion about the size of the rear tire. It's 4.5 by 18. The front's a 4 by 18, and the new rear is going to be a 110/90/18. Gives me a lot more tire choices, a little easier on the price too. And I'll also show you what the difference in height looks like. Anyway, I'll figure out how to put this all together in something somewhat coherent. But for right now, I hate when people point. Let's work on getting that tire off. Went ahead and cleaned some of the muck off here. And I finally got the bead to break loose. Tire says it's 4-ply. I don't know what that means, but as opposed to what a regular tire is, but this thing is pretty stiff feeling. So this could prove challenging to get off here. Well, so that was kind of a pain in the ass. A little worse in the front. I'm going to peel all this garbage off here. What's left of this rim strip. I think we'll go to the parts washer. As difficult as this thing is to get off, may go ahead and get those seals out and repack those and clean them. So I spent some time cleaning this up, polishing it. With as much patience as I have for all that kind of work. I can go on in there later and get that stuff cleaned up in the spokes. I would like to make this thing a roller, and clear out some parts I have laying around. Really. So I got a new rim strip. Good thing, because that one was junk. for Christ's sake. All right, now I've lost the hole, so I'll have to find that. Try to make sure that's good and centered, covering the spoke holes. Although I would suspect once we get done wrestling that tire on there, it's not going to be. Had pretty good luck last time with the little armor all. This is lubricant. My biggest problem last time with the front tire was getting the valve stem through the hole on the rim. So I'm going to try to leave this thing collapse and see if that helps. This tire is a little wider, so that might help. Pretty much as soon as I turn the camera off, I got that valve stem fished through there. Pretty much looked through the hole and feel around, and then I could see it, and I got a pick in there and got through the hole. And then of course you have to hold it, because if you let go it shoots back through. So I had to hold it and get a nut on there, so that thing started. Now let's try to get this dang tube in here. Right there. And of course there's blood. Can match up that Band-Aid. Great. Alright, it's finally on there. Injuries are taken care of. Let's go ahead and fill it up. Almost acts like I pinched this damn tube. So I'm not going to lie to you. This is going to be the third tube. First two I ended up puncturing. So we're going to be really, really careful with this one and get it in there without puncturing it. So we're going to try leaving it collapse. That seemed to work to get the stem through the hole. Take the stem out, inflate it a little bit, and then be very careful with the tire irons and the rim protectors to get this tube in. So that has been very carefully wrestled over the rim. Now for the moment of truth. Before there was air gushing out, so I believe our tube is in good shape. I believe we'll need to run the compressor to fully inflate that and get it pushed all the way up on the bead. And then we can finish this part up. So our tire is held air. Finally got one right. It'd be a shame to go this far and not repack these wheel bearings. One might be tempted to think that this hub would unbolt and you get to the wheel bearings that way, because there's nuts on the back. But I pulled those bolts out and that hub didn't really want to move, so I stopped. And then there's some friendly folks on Facebook groups that posted that picture, and they advised me that seals come out and the bearings come right out after that. So let's find out. I do have new seals. There it goes. So there's a bearing and a little sleeve. And a spool in there, and there should be the same setup on the other side. So I cleaned this wheel bearing. Everything looks fine. The race looks okay. Cleaned up the spacer, mopped all the grease out inside there. Go ahead and pack this one, put it in, install the seal. We'll flip it over, pull that one out. This way we don't get any parts mixed up. There's the part number I found for that seal, if anybody's interested. Just to make sure we're full. So that thing wants to shoot out of there on all sides. Try a piece of wood. Go ahead and put our spacer in there. So this bearing's cleaned, repacked, put back in there, spacers in there. I reset the seal on the other side. We'll try this seal. See how well this goes in. Your favorite 36mm socket seems to be the best trick. These seals are all rubber. They all seem to want to try to squirt back out. Looks like as good as we're going to get that one. So I've set up the wheel on some jack stands to do some homemade balancing. I won't bore you with that too much, but I pretty much watched where the valve stem was and where I'd start, and then I would spin it and let it stop and keep track of where the valve stem stopped. It was kind of my reference point. And it was not stopping in the same spot every time. It was pretty much random all around the clock, so I'm going to call that good enough. Next order of business. So I'm going to get in here and clean up some more of this stuff on the rear suspension, the drive. I think I'm going to take these mufflers off so they're out of the way and I can clean all this mess up some more, drain the fluid, replace that seal, and just generally clean everything up back here so I can get the rear wheel back on. I'll remove the mufflers and bring it back. So I got the rear mufflers off. Actually, they're the only mufflers. Apparently these things had a crossover pipe between each side. And unfortunately somebody has hacked off the fitting and gooped them up with RTV and tech screws and eliminated it, I'm assuming, so they could run that monster rear tire. So I'm going to have to look into what I need to do to remedy that situation, or if it even needs them. So next we will get the fluid drained out of this rear drive. We'll drain it. I'm assuming I'm going to drain it. There may not be anything in here based on how wet and leaky this thing looks. That's 6 bolts. Yeah. That's some good stuff there. Unfortunately, it looks as though that gasket has disintegrated. Of course, I don't have one, so silicone might be our friend in this instance. That is thick and nasty. So we'll let all this drain for a while and then commence on cleaning. And we'll commence on cleaning the rest of this mess up. I cleaned up the sump. It actually turned out pretty decent, but there's a seal on the back side, and I'm also leaking up here. And I believe there's an oil seal in there, so I think by taking the shock off and these 4 bolts around this flange that I can take this whole drive box off, and that'll help clean. That'll give me some more access to clean it up and do the seals, I hope. So those are all loose. Oh yeah. Oh, this gear oil is sticky and nasty. I think it'd be safe to assume this is likely original stuff in here. And as far as I know, there's a spline coupling in here, and this should just pull out. Oh geez, yeah, there is. And there's the whole drive shaft too. So there's a tapered roller bearing in there. The gasket, and then this drive shaft runs up to the back of the transmission. Let's go clean up the bevel box and see what it looks like. So there's the drive shaft. That looks symmetric on both ends. Uh-oh. Maybe it only goes one way. So it's just like a rear end in a car. I guess I was wrong. The clearance in the back of the tube is for that nut. So that is lubricated somehow, I'm assuming by gear oil. So somewhere in all this mess should be a seal. I can't imagine they would not seal that. So let me try to figure some of this out. So I have this rear drive box cleaned up as well as I'm going to clean it up anyway. See how it works. I have that seal. I understand there's a seal on the opposite side where the axle goes through. I'm not so sure I want to disassemble this entire thing to change that seal. And it says there's a seal behind here, but it looks more like an O-ring. So I'm gonna let that ride, and I'm just gonna pop that seal out, and I do have a new one to go in there. And then we'll have to make a gasket for here, although it was paper. I'm not even really sure that it actually seals anything. I don't know if there was grease in that bearing. I'm not sure how it's lubricated, but I should be able to make a gasket for that, and then may or may not make a gasket for that bottom. Then we'll put this back together. Looks like it's starting to pull it. There we go. It's got some of that nasty gear oil behind it. I have a new seal. It is 70 by 85 by 8. It's a nice thing about metric seals, they make them pretty easy. Put a little wheel bearing grease on that lip. Of course, I do not have any socket this large, so we're going to have to just try to tap it in. That was probably the easiest one yet. So this is all cleaned up. There was a really thin paper gasket on here, which pretty much disintegrated when it came off. And I'm not sure if there's a seal behind there, but I don't want to start digging into this too much. So I considered making a new gasket. I'm not sure how much that gasket does. I'm not sure how that bearing's lubricated, to be honest. So I packed a little wheel bearing grease in there. All the silicone I have is jacked up and solid, and I got a brand new tube I don't really want to open for one little spot. So I have this Loctite 574, which is flange sealant, which I used on the 912 engine to seal the cases together. I've had good luck with this stuff on other applications. So we're gonna go ahead and try some of this on here. Now I'm hoping I can get this thing re-engaged in the splines. Ha! That was easy. And I cleaned up these nuts and hardware. They were really dirty. Now I dropped it right in the oil. So I'll have to clean that one again. Little sump that goes here on the bottom, cleaned up really well. Look, now that it's been up here for like 10 minutes, all that amount of oil has oozed out of there already, even though I've like scrubbed this and wiped it out and you name it. Anyway, there's one little tear in this gasket, and I glued it back together with some high-tech gasket cement. So what I'm thinking is I will use the same Loctite to seal this side of it. I know it's flange sealant, but it works pretty well as gasket adhesive or sealant also. Nice thing about this stuff, it usually never gets hard. Or it's not supposed to get hard. I mean, it tube's like $30-some or was. So we'll get this put back on here and then go ahead and fill this up and give it an overnight test and see if we have any leaks. Okay, so I have removed fill level plug and the fill plug, and this stuff is set up a little bit. I'm going to go in with some 80-90 gear oil, which is what it calls for. So I should fill it up to once it runs out the fill plug, we'll throw that back in. That wasn't intended to be the money shot right there, sorry about that. Alright. It told me how much this thing held, and I don't remember. 1/4 of a liter? That doesn't seem right. 3/4 of a liter? Maybe that's what it was there. Oh, oh, she's full now. Let some of that run out. Throw this in there. Nice. No need to go crazy with that. That's just a paper gasket on there. Make sure everything's cleaned off here. There's the fill cap, by the way. I'll go ahead and put that on. And we'll wait, see what our leakage looks like. Hopefully there is none. Okay, so we've lasted overnight and not leaked any gear oil, so I'm happy with that. Put a little grease in there where the splines go. It's probably the wrong thing to go in there, but that's what I have. And I've spent some time cleaning up this wheel, cleaning up the swing arm, everything I can't really get to without or with the wheel installed. So let's put this thing back in. I also came in here and cleaned up the brake shoes, etc. That went in about 1,000 times easier than it came off. I believe that's the pinch bolt. Got to get the torque rod right. And then I guess I should have paid a little more attention. Had that above, but we'll just unclip it up at the front and get it back on. Not sure that stud's supposed to come out like that, or whatever works. Alright, so the brake's adjusted enough. So that's all back together. Next we'll tackle getting the rear fender in there. I don't see any reason why it can't go back on right now. Then we can get some of this stuff reattached. Maybe get the rear lights on it, get some more parts back on so they don't get lost. There's literally a bag with 4 sets of nuts and bolts in here, so that looks like all that holds this on. Just making some assumptions here, but all the holes line up. Now for the fun part, try to figure out how this whole voltage regulator setup ties into all this. I feel like it also bolted to the fender right there, and I do not see any hardware for that. So perhaps off camera we'll try to get that all back in there. Got this whole voltage regulator set up, mounted, put the battery in. I think I'm gonna have to either make a spacer or re-thread these a little longer, or put a block of wood under the battery or something. So I would say the back part of the bike is pretty much complete, other than the wiring, which we know was all hacked to pieces. Unfortunately, I have 2 holes from some of that previous, I guess, railing saddlebag setup. I'm not sure what to do with. These little bullets were holding the license plate on originally. You just fill those holes with that. And I also have its future license plate to go on there. Let's stick that on. So there we go. That's the back half. In North Carolina, they allow you to run a year of manufacturer license plate on the older cars like this, so I put all of my older cars. I think it was like $8 on eBay. Apparently this thing's a 73, but the title says 74, and that's what the registration is going to have to say. So who really cares? But anyway, here we go. I think that about ends it for this one. Wait, there's more. I just couldn't resist based on how nasty that rear drive fluid was. Figured might as well go ahead and drain the transmission and let it drain a while. See how bad it looks. No, it's not as black. Actually looks way better than what was in the rear end. Since this thing won't be running for a while, we'll let that just sit here and drain for a week or so. I think that'll end it for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. See ya.